Hey guys, JJ here. Welcome back for another Saturday of Zoom networking. Really excited about today's call. It kind of touches with something I've got going on right now with one of my personal projects. Our guest speaker today is someone who I've recently come to know, and I'm just impressed with this young lady. She's a coach. She's an entrepreneur. She's a businesswoman. She's doing really good sized projects, which leads into her topic today. But my good friend, Devinne Bravoco. Devinne, how are you?
Hi, JJ. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, hey, I'm excited. It's a pleasure to have you here. You know, I heard your name mentioned for quite a while before we finally connected. And I think after the third person said, do you know Devinne? Do you know Devinne? I'm like, no, but I think somebody should introduce me. You know, you start hearing somebody's name, is like, okay, we got to meet. So let me ask you, for those that don't know you, what part of the country are you from?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in New Jersey and still live there, love it. And New Jersey's got a bad rep, but guys, it's a cool place.
There you go. Now, what part of New Jersey?
Yeah, so I'm like Western Central-ish Jersey. I'm closer to like Easton, PA. So I'm in like the farmland, all by gardens and a lot of nature.
That sounds beautiful. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah,
So
it's gorgeous.
let me ask you, you know, we're talking about real estate topics. What did you do before you became a real estate investor? What was your path to real estate?
Yeah, my path was interesting. So I didn't have any experience in real estate. I actually started my career after college as a corporate event planner in a financial firm in Manhattan. And so I had always thought that I was going to be a wedding planner or work for a nonprofit. But clearly that was just a hope and a dream. And I ended up meeting someone actually through connection. And so, make a long story short, my dad met somebody that needed help with a generator during a hurricane, and he had a Rutgers sticker on magnet on his car, and that's where I graduated college. They started talking, and somehow the next week I was in the city meeting with this random person who was in finance, introduced me to somebody else, and that's where I worked for 7.5 years and worked my way up from an intern to ended my career there as an assistant VP with direct report. And yeah, we traveled across the country and planned as a team about 500 events a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some frequent flyer miles racked up there.
I had the best status ever at the time, and I missed those perks traveling, but it was fun while I was there.
With real estate, I think, as I understand it, I mean, we just met recently, and I know that you're currently coaching for the homeschool program by Tarek. Is that correct?
I am. Yes. I've been coaching with them for about 1.5 years now. And it's been fun and an honor, and I love it. I love teaching people how to kind of get started in real estate and how to jump in, and how much contacts are so important, and just to keep pushing and never give up. So it's been a fun run.
So now, when did you start your journey in like real estate education? Because a lot of us are from different programs: Astro Flipping, Sub2, Talk, Brent Daniels, people.
Yeah, so I joined an educational program about 4.5 years ago with my partner, and the two of us started kind of just diving in. I had no real estate background. I knew that my parents had a rental property that helped them actually pay for my college, which was awesome. And so I saw the benefits of it, but just never knew I could do anything with it or would understand any part of it, to be honest. And so life kind of hit us sideways at the time, and literally Googled like, what do rich people do? And everyone was involved in real estate in some which way. And I knew that at that point in life, a change needed to be made. And so the change ended up getting into real estate, and was the best change that I ever had.
Fantastic. Today's topic is a crazy topic. So tell us a little bit about your topic. We'll get into other things, of course, but
yeah.
How did you come up today with the topic of the million dollar flip?
Yeah, so I am not a designer by trade. I actually never went to design school. I never I took a few classes like on the side, but I never knew how to design. So when I started flipping in the beginning part, like I literally Googled and asked a million questions and would show up at random stores saying, can you explain like how tile works? Like, can you explain how this works and how, how to make something look fancy when not spending $1 million for it. And so when we got into designing bigger projects, it was more so like, I'm not going to spend $1 million to design this house. And so when we were flipping houses, just realistically, we kind of went from one house to the next, and we just kept growing and growing and doing bigger and bigger projects. And so it's just grown over the years, and now we're flipping $1 million homes.
Now, as you've gotten into the bigger homes, you develop some kind of a knack for design or staging, or does that become one of your trademarks?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Our first project, so that was like the hardest project for me because I knew nothing. And I remember our contractor being like, well, what do you want to put here? What is this going to look? I'm like, I don't know. Like, how do I figure that out? And so it was just more so a lot of research and understanding it. And then I really loved understanding like how textures worked and how, lines made sense, like how things went together and the overall outlook of things. And even just like the smallest pieces of making your cabinets go to the ceiling, it makes your ceilings look taller. Like it just adds a lot of character to it. And so I learned a lot there, and I didn't know that I had anything, to be honest. I was just kind of doing my own thing. And then people started asking us to design their personal homes. And we're like, we're investors. We don't do that, like at first. And then after a few times of hearing it, we kind of like looked at ourselves being like, oh, maybe we should try this. Like, let's, take on more projects. And a lot of our flips in the beginning were smaller flips that were kind of cosmetic and little like tidbits, if you will. And so, and no disrespect, but we would walk into them and always, we wanted to move a wall. We wanted to open something up. We wanted to change the things that like necessarily as an investor didn't need to be changed. And so it made sense like design and aesthetically to me, but like it didn't make sense to our numbers. And so that was like a frustrating process for us to then have to figure out how to go from there to let's just knock a house down and start from scratch, because we're not going to be happy with the result otherwise.
So have you taken many houses down, or on the contrary, have you just redesigned and done other things to save the additional costs? And what's in the beginning, so our first house that we ever purchased, we knocked it down to the foundation and rebuilt it. So the first house that we did, we purchased it, and it was a 2-bed, 1-bath. I want to say. And we ended up, it was a 4-bed, 3.5-bath, but we designed the whole house, like the architectural plans. Our first architect actually hand drew everything, which we thought was really cool when we first started. And then we learned like that just takes a long time. So like, can we please use technology? So that took like some time to like really figure out, but it was a cool experience nonetheless. And we learned a lot from it. So it started from there. So our first one, we knocked down to a couple 2x4s and rebuilt it. Well, we got a couple questions that have popped in here. Mary McGinty, sure. you are on with Devin. What's your question?
So what was your biggest lesson that you learned that you would never repeat flipping a house?
Biggest lesson is trust your comps like as much as possible, especially like in your design aesthetics. Like our first house in the comps, it does show that you need a formal dining room, and we did not have a formal dining room. And so I think that we were too new in the process and didn't know to look for things like that. We were more so focused on like numbers and bed bath counts, but knowing like aesthetically and like what it needs to look like. A lot of houses that we go into too, like you have to kind of look, okay, is it a traditional kind of house? Is it a modern house? Is it, it doesn't necessarily, like you're not going into a new neighborhood just designing the way you want a house to look. You have to design it to what's going to sell, especially if you're flipping it. And so we struggled selling the house the first, like our first flip, because all of the feedback was that there wasn't a formal dining room and we couldn't like reconfigure. And we spent hours in the house trying to figure out how we can reconstruct things. And ending up, we found somebody to buy the house as is. But yeah, I would definitely trust your comps, but like look at it in that perspective too. Like what features are there that you need to have?
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
You are on with Devin. What's your question?
Yes, thank you. Hey, Devin. So you mentioned that you had a W-2 and you worked there for about 7 years. Can you just describe that transition from like W-2 to full-time investing? Like, what was that trigger for you, or what was that moment that where you decided, okay, that's it. I want to go into this full-time?
Yeah, well, great question and good to see you. So biggest thing for me, honestly, it kind of came handed to me on a platter, if you will. It came in the sense that like my company was going through an acquisition at the time. And so I had to re-interview for my job and I was really wishy-washy. And I remember talking to my partner and I was like, I don't know what to do, because like the security part of me wanted to keep my job so that like we had that income. He had left his corporate job and was doing our business full time for us, and like my salary was our security. But at the time I literally went into the meeting and I didn't know what I wanted. And so we're interviewing for the job and I was wishy-washy in the sense. And I was like, I know I'm really good at my job and I know that I'm an asset to this company. I know that I would do great. And I know I would be like an amazing person for it. And then at the same time, I'm like, but like, maybe I should be trying something different, because at the time we also had our business going. And it was, I know a lot of people probably still struggle with this, but for me, my company, I could not also own my own business. It was a conflict of interest. And so I kept it really quiet and everything was private. And so nobody really knew what was going on. So in the meeting, I'm like, maybe it's time for me to try something new. But it just kind of came down to the fact that in the end, I'm sure the person that was interviewing me also realized that I was wishy-washy and I didn't know what I wanted. And there was somebody else better for the job. Which was really nice because I got a package and I left and walked away nice and happy.
So let me ask you now, the economy seems to be changing. The market seems to be changing. Stock market's kind of failing or falling.
Yeah.
Interest rates are rising. How does that change the outlook for you now as an investor? What were you doing before that you might modify a little bit now with this change coming along for us?
Yeah, we were really against pre-selling a house because like we just didn't think it ever showed well. Anytime like we had a house for sale that like wasn't fully finished and staged, like it just didn't work out to our benefit. But we have listed now 2 of our current new builds with an agent for pre-sale. And so it's not listed on the MLS. She does it very differently and has a very big, large list of clients, if you will. And so it's been a really great experience so far. And so we've pre-sold one of our houses and are in talks and have some questions moving forward for another house that we're building. So it's definitely something that's opening our eye to it. And I think it's also fun for us because, again, going to the design perspective, like we're able to use the designs and like propose all these different upgrades and see if, this is how we're planning to design the house. You like this, you want to change this. These are your different options of things that you can choose from. So it's more work up front, but I think it's been in the long run a better process. And so my biggest thing I would recommend is finding like a great agent, because we've had agents before that just, we had been we would end up talking to the attorneys for them, or we'd be talking to the buyers for them. And it was really discouraging and really like, it almost gives me like PTSD to talk about, because we were just like so frustrated. Like, we're the investor. Like, why are we being connected to the buyers? Why do the buyers have all our cell phone numbers? So I guess going into the recession essentially is, I would say if you're going to continue to flip is knock out all of your contacts and make sure that you have strong people around you and strong people that could support you and can keep you moving and connect you to the right people and be there to support you through it all, and be conservative with your numbers too.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I preach it all the time, the aspect of networking people. We'll
Yeah.
continue talking about that a little bit as well. Al Dominguez, you are on with Devin. What's your question?
Thank you, JJ, and thank you, Devin, for your time. My question is, you mentioned your transition from, corporate to real estate. I was wondering what books did you read or helped you during that transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Reading, I think, is like one of the biggest parts. I read like every book that was like self-help. It wasn't necessarily even business. Obviously you read your Rich Dad Poor Dad when you first start. Like, I feel like that's your gateway into real estate. But I was reading like 20% Happier. I was reading The Secret. I was reading any kind of mindset book, the book called Mindset. I was Ryan Holiday wrote 2 books that I love, Ego is the Enemy and The Obstacle is the Way. And those really helped me kind of put life in perspective also, and understand like we're just going to keep pushing. So it wasn't necessarily business books. It was more so just mindset books and trying to understand how to get my mind right. We went to a lot of conferences, and I don't know if you've heard of Jesse Itzler, but love Jesse Itzler. And he wrote Living with a Monk and Living with a Seal. And those 2 books really just helped, again, put life in perspective and put my mindset in a different place. And those were like the first books I would say that I read kind of when I was shifting into being a full-time investor versus my corporate job. I would say reading podcasts is huge. So just keep with that and just, read as much as you possibly can. Work on your mindset. Your mindset's everything in the business.
Michael Santos, you are on with Devin. What's your question?
Hey, Coach. So we are basically leading into year 2 of our, our investment career, our journey. We've done 2 flips so far. However, every single time it kind of feels like we're just starting over.
Okay.
And I'm learning. I'm learning how to like build it where it's not just like one at a time. But how long did it take you to like actually get to where you're at? How was your first few years or so?
Yeah. So my question to you first is like, why do you feel like you're starting over each time? Like what puts those feelings in your mind? Yeah.
So our first flip, it was our first one. So we just dedicated 100% of our time, sure the construction was doing good. Basically we just had tunnel vision. The focus is mainly on that flip.
Yeah.
Nothing for another property.
Yeah.
And then we sold that. Then once again, we had like, okay, we need to find another flip.
Okay.
So 2 months before we found another property, we found that property, tunnel vision. We just basically focused, making sure that we get that property, like done, rehab, and on the market.
Mm-hmm.
We sold it, and now we're kind of back to square one again. So it kind of feels like, we, instead of like, we got our contractors in there, let's look for another property while this one is in progress. We kind of just like one done.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing. And now I'm kind of looking at multiple properties at the same time. I know I talked to you about a month ago regarding looking at like Indiana for like the midterm rental.
Yes, I thought.
Yeah. So, we just kind of expanded, based on we're just not looking for flip, we're looking for other ways of investing. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing, like for us, when we kind of felt it wasn't like a hobby, it was more like a business, was when we had multiple projects going on at once. And so I think it helps too when your projects are at different stages. So like, for example, we have 2 new builds happening right now. And one is we're pouring the concrete for the footings. And the other one, we're inside doing like the molding and stuff. And so it just feels like when one finishes, like you still have more going on versus, it just being something that is, then you have to start again. So I think those are like the biggest things of like that shift of when you actually feel like you're really in business, except that, I mean, in my opinion, that's how I felt, I guess. But it takes time to build, you don't want to take on too much at once. We've gotten in that, in that area before too. And we've bought way too much and didn't have the capacity to take it on. And so it just sits there for a little bit and it happens. So you have to challenge yourself, but also know your limits in a sense.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I don't know my limits until I hit it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm kind of like, I'm now pushing myself to go beyond what I think my limit is.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like I'm now no longer in my comfort zone. I'm more in my like a little bit out, going toward the fear side. But
Yeah, but that's good. I think like challenging yourself and making yourself uncomfortable is growth. And so it's important to push yourself to be uncomfortable and to get to that next step. But I would say like, don't go out and buy maybe 3 properties at once that you're going to flip all at once, but maybe stagger them. So maybe when you're in like stage 2 of your flip number 1, then you kind of look into purchasing your next one also. And Amy Majori, fun fact, was my first real estate coach. And I know a lot of people on this call know her, and she always would say like, always be marketing, always be marketing. So like, if you're marketing and you're driving for dollars, or you're sending out, you have bandit signs, or you're sending out mailers or whatever, those leads don't happen overnight. Like you're not going to all of a sudden close on a property. So, if you're always marketing and you have a lead come up, like nurture that lead and follow up. That's usually where it's not going to happen over the first call when you're connected too. So it's going to take time. And so if you're constantly marketing and you have it structured enough that you can scatter it, I think that will also help with like the fear or the anxiety of taking on too much. Whereas it'll also challenge you, but it's not taking on so much that you're in over your head.
Probably going to need to find out by doing that rather. I don't know where my limit is yet.
Yeah. And that's okay. Everyone's different. I, even as a coach, like I can't tell you what your limit is. Like that's different for each person. But I think it's something to also think of, like, what are your long-term goals? Is it something that you want cash flow? Is it something that like you like actively flipping? So maybe you can sprinkle in a rental property in between your flips, and that maintenance is much different than an active flip. So I think it's really realistically looking at your goals and what are they, and then how do you get to where that is.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Of course. Good to see you.
Yes.
Stacey, you are back, girl. What's your question for Devinne?
Okay, Devinne, my question for you is, you mentioned that you work on multiple projects. And so can you just share how exactly, like what your strategy is with funding all of these projects all at the same time, and how you structure that? Because that may seem like a lot. And yeah, I'm just curious to know how that's done.
Yeah, so a lot of our projects, it depends. So if it's our short-term rentals, those are all funded 100% by private money right now. And then we will renovate them, obviously get them going, and then we'll refinance them down the road, usually after 12 months. Our bigger flips, so like when we're talking like $1 million flip, we're usually building and putting around $350,000 to $450,000 in just for the renovation, on top of purchasing the home for around $500,000 too. So those are bigger numbers to play with. So we usually use a hard money lender for the first position, and then the second position is a gap funder. And so gap funders are usually private lenders that will just lend us the money for the year or however long it's going to take us. So we kind of we alter that depending on what flip it is. When we've done like quicker flips, if you will, we've used specifically just private money. But that's something that you also have to work on networking and building those contacts. Our first few flips, like we didn't have a private lender that would lend to us. It took us a while to really build those contacts. And so, now over time, it's something that we're constantly building and working on and growing. And now we can kind of have the money on our terms versus always trying to kind of work to other people's terms. And so now we go in saying, this is exactly what we need. If you don't fit into this hole, that's also okay. We'll find a deal that it'll fit into, but this is what we're looking for.
That makes a lot of sense. I have a follow-up, if that's okay, JJ.
Yeah.
That one? Okay, awesome. So with those like long-term flips, how exactly are you, I guess, like structuring that opportunity to your private lenders? Like, because I'm assuming this is probably like a 1 or 2 year flip. It's not like a quick like lipstick type of flip where you're in and out in like a couple months. So how exactly do you do you present that to your lender if it's going to be like an over 2-year type of project?
Yeah. So I'll give you, I guess, two different answers to it. One, how we do it now, and this is not how we started, but now we know like what the lenders want. Like we know who our lenders are, who we can go to, and who will ask certain questions. We have some lenders that will do a full Dropbox and give them all the information that we possibly have on the property and what we're planning to do and our projections and what the comps are showing and everything and anything. And then there's some lenders that were like, hey, this is the amount that we need for this amount of time. And they don't even ask us a question. So it's, they trust us and, we're honored to have built those relationships. But in the beginning, we would do the first answer. So like we would create a Dropbox and we would send it out and we would contact them and reach out and follow up and send all the details and stuff. And so again, building your private lender list is really important, but also building every contact in this business is really important because a lot of it you get from one place to the next, honestly, is by connections.
Grace, you are on with Devinne. What's your question?
My question for you, Devinne, is, so I know you mentioned like you built your business with your partner, and what would be your top 3 tips of, I guess, the most important things you've learned as you're working with your partner to keep in mind?
Working with your partner is not easy. I'll first say that. And so when you start working with your partner, I think my partner's on this call actually. So working with your partner, it's not easy. And he would say the exact same thing. It is something that is the most rewarding thing ever when things go right. And it is the hardest thing ever when things go wrong because you're emotionally attached to that person too. My top tips, and I don't do this well, but this is what I try to do, is really try to separate the business and personal life and just try to figure out like what makes the most sense for you and how you can also lean in on the strengths and weaknesses. Like he's really, really good with numbers and contacts and having those conversations with our hard money lenders and putting together all of the terms for our private lenders and what's going to make sense. And just like the acquisitions and finding properties too. Like we both are like, I try to be very conservative in a lot of ways on like not taking on too much or not wanting to jump. And he is really big on jumping. And so we balance each other out. In that sense, it doesn't make it easier for either of us because like, he can feel like I'm holding him back and I can feel like he's pushing me too much. But I guess the tip, like the thing you learn from that is to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. And you want that balance because if both of us were ready to jump full time and like full in on every project, we'd probably have like 100 projects going on right now. And that's not reasonable. So I guess like 1 is know your strengths and weaknesses. 2 is learn to respect people, like respect each other in the business, not necessarily just personal, because we're human beings. And like, if things hurt or things get messy, it's complicated and it makes it hard. But I think the biggest thing is to differentiate the two. And then the other part too, like, again, I don't do this well, but like have fun with it. Like you're in a business with like a partner who you have, whether a friendship with or, a relationship with or whatever it is, like that person means something to you. And there's some reason that you went into business with it. So have fun and be proud of like all that you've accomplished and look at it and like enjoy it together, because that's something that whether you're in a romantic relationship with or just, a business however it works out, it's something that you're creating together. And that's something that you should really look at and be proud of. And I don't think I do that enough.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Rose, you're on with Devinne. What's your question?
First, I want to say thanks, Devinne. I'm homeschool as well. Jen is my coach, and I love everything that you always say. She did a weekend boot camp that was great. So my question is, and I don't know if maybe you answered it, but I'm kind of running back and forth working, but did you ever start by yourself in this? Or did you always have a partner with Justin when you guys did this together?
Yeah. So yeah. Great question. And love Jen Josie. So you're in good hands. She's one of my friends. So you're in good hands there. We started the business together. So have never really been without him. We've definitely separated roles, which I think is something to kind of go back to answering Grace's question also, is really to separate roles and responsibilities, and not, I think we struggle with the sense of like making it corporate and not corporate. But I think, I kind of went along the lines of saying that in the sense of he handling the financing and the acquisition and me handling more of like the design and the management part of it. But no, we've always been in business together.
Okay. That's the only thing that I'm having struggle with. Sometimes I'm here for like 50 hours a week, sometimes more.
Yeah.
And then going home and then starting like at 9:30 at night or whatever till 1, and then being on call, the rest of the night, and then coming back to work and then trying to find every little time that I can. So that's just me, just trying to
but that's
do
what we
that
did
order
too.
of operation thing. So because I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people do it as well.
Yeah, that's really how we started too. So like, I say this like as humble as possible, but like we're nothing, like we're no special, like we're no different than you or anybody else on this call. We put in the hard work. Like there's always people who like want certain things, but it's like how much time and how much effort are you going to put into it? What, parties or events are you not going to go to so that you can be working on yourself and your business and growing? And we did all those sacrifices, and both of us were working in the hospitality world in Manhattan. And so I was traveling a lot. He was working extremely long hours, and it was the least unattractive and unsexy thing to do was come home at like 1 a.m. and sit there and watch our curriculum for hours and like get on a call with a coach when I'm in a different state, or he's, running an event and like half listening, half on it. But like both of us it was that sacrifice that we wanted a different life, and we were going to put everything that we possibly could into it. And so it's not easy, but I don't think anything great is easy. Like you have to work for it.
Right. I get it. That was just my question. But
anyway, of course.
I
don't think it matters though, in that sense of having a partner or not. It's, I think it's more just like what sacrifice you're going to put into it. And so it looks like you're in some sort of medical field. And so, I'm sure you're working long hours too, but also use it as go and like try to work on your mind that when you're working on your real estate business, like instead of it being like a side hustle right now or something that is tiresome, like try to work on your mind and knowing that like you're working on it for the greater good, and that's going to be something that's going to be beautiful down the road. And maybe right now it's not as sexy or exactly what you want, but that you'll get there and the hard work will pay off, but you have to do the steps to get there.
Right. And I get. And I always I bring this one with me. So when I'm in my break, no, you can see it. The Who Not How.
Oh yeah.
So when I can't take it anymore, I walk outside and flip through a few pages and then come back and ready to go again. But anyway, thank you so much. I don't want to take everybody's time, but thank you.
Yeah.
You are on with Devin. What's your question?
Hi, Devin. So this is also regarding partnership. I met a lady at a tax lien workshop 2 months ago, and we kind of partnered up because we don't have any friends that are interested in doing what we do. So far, we're good. We're both newbies. We're trying to learn. She has the money. I have sweat equity. But I spoke to a group of people and even a coach last weekend, and they were advising me to kind of cut ties with her because I don't really know her yet. But you know how I what do you call it? Like an instinct that she is a good person, and I kind of want to stick it out. And I don't know if you would advise for us to say, sit down with an attorney to break down our roles in the business. How should I proceed with this? Because I do like her so much now as a person, the more I get to know her, but I also don't want to ruin that, the friendship and the business. So is it good for us to sit down with an attorney and then, talk about our roles and write it down so we kind of, prevent conflicts in the future?
Yeah. So I have, I guess, two different parts to say on it. One is that I think that anybody can do this business on your own. I don't think that you need a partner. So like, please, if you're doing it because you feel like you you need a partner or you need somebody else to be in the business. Like you can do it on your own, and you should be working on your mind in that respect and working on your confidence on that respect, that you can do it on your own, regardless of like what you know or don't know. Like everything is learnable, and you can just take one step in front of the other. So I think that's like a question that you really have to sit with to figure out like why you're choosing this person to be a partner. If you're going to continue the partnership, I would say that yes, you should have contracts and you should have things in writing, especially if you don't know this person. I think going anything on a handshake in this business is really difficult and can lead you down, a territory that could be bad as you go. So I would definitely work with an attorney to figure out like, okay, how are we separating this? What are our different, and if we continue to go down this road and things don't work out, how are we also going to separate, and making sure that those are all in writing and you're both under agreements. If that person is not willing to have those conversations, I think that answers your question right then and there.
Devin and I started in a program, although we didn't know we were in it at the same time, but we were in it at the same time about 4 years ago. And a lot of people would team up. I teamed up with a couple of people.
Okay.
And that didn't go well. We ended up separating the LLC. And it's like, when you get into a partnership, it's like getting into a marriage. You should have a contract. You should talk to an attorney. You should have an LLC. You're probably best to do your own thing, but you can joint venture whenever you so choose. And then their LLC would joint venture with your LLC, but you're not permanently tied into being in with one another, for like, okay, now we have to get out of this LLC. Now we're going to have to split the business account.
Gotcha.
So Devin, let me ask you, are all your projects local or are they out of state? Because some people only stay close to home where they can be their own boots on the ground. Some people invest out of state. Which path is the one you've taken?
So we're kind of a combination of both. So we have two different strategies we're working on. Well, almost three. So all of our flips, like we will only take on if it is within an hour radius of us. So we won't drive longer than an hour. Ours still is pushing it, especially for a new construction house. Like we're there weekly. We're always, going to check to make sure the crews are there, going to check that things are happening and that it's the way that we want them to. And so we've been working with the same crew for a while, but there's still that, like, we have to see it for ourselves and be there and to know that things are progressing along. So for us, our radius is an hour max. So those are only in Jersey. And then we have been doing homeowner projects that are like design projects for homeowners and working with them. Those are also within an hour. We did a really cool project in Manhattan, which was much farther, but it was a really cool project that was a great experience. So we're open to that. And then all of our short-term rentals are about 2.5 hours away. So those we manage from afar and have a whole crew that is up there that can manage them day to day.
Great. Wow. So now, what's going to be your, well, we kind of talked about the change in market, but what are some of your longer term objectives for investment? Are you, some people go multifamily, some people go commercial. What do you see your path being, maybe with the change in the market, the change in the economy, or just your own growth as an investor?
Yeah, so I love that question. And it's something that, like, I don't know if I knew the answer to that a while ago, but when we got into short-term rentals, it was not something we had planned. It kind of was like a lot of research. We were trying to figure out the area. And so we got into it, and it was like such a blessing in disguise because it really used our hospitality background and our real estate that we are currently working on. And so it kind of mended the two, and also design, right? We were able to design and make it an experience that is, people like write that it's like cozy and that they have never felt more at home. And the amenities that are there are something that they've never been able to replicate in different places. So that's something that has been an honor to do. And so I love that industry, and we've really grown to, it's not as active as flipping. So it's been a wonderful experience. So I think something that we're looking to do is definitely scale and continue growing in that area. We also are really interested in, getting maybe like a small bed and breakfast, or getting an old motel and changing it into Airbnbs. There's a couple of different things that we've been kind of looking into, and then also interested in getting into the midterm rental, long-term rental area too, just to have more income coming in and more cash coming in and less maintenance, if you will, than a short-term rental. So it's just different strategies we're looking at. Been looking into like the Indiana area, kind of just researching and trying to figure out what's next for us.
Awesome. I want to thank you for coming on today. You started where we all started as a student, and you progressed, became a successful student, and now you're a coach. And you've got you're an example. You're a role model. People look up to you, and you're just spreading great things by helping people. So I really, really want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to cut out in a minute, and we're going to go to the breakout rooms, do some live networking. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, this is a networking group. That's kind of what my group is about. And we've had some people ask questions earlier before the call about getting businesses going. But whether one is an experienced investor or a new investor, if they're not quite yet networking, what's the benefit to their business of networking, or maybe joining a group like mine?
I think that networking is everything. I'm big on like Instagram and just like, joining masterminds. Something actually over the last 5-6 months, I realized prior to that time that I wasn't in as many groups that I had been in before. I was always going to meetups and constantly out and talking to people. And I could feel like a complete change in myself. And I couldn't pinpoint what it was. And so I did join a mastermind, I think back in June, and that I feel like just changed like my perspective on a lot of different things again. And being around community is huge. And when you isolate yourself, for me, in my opinion, I kind of like go inwards. And so I needed those other people to be around me, to cheer me on, to push me through, and know that like it's a roller coaster. So networking is everything, and just to cheer you on, but also like I find a lot of contacts through Instagram, or I find a lot of contacts from being out and talking to people. So you never know who you're going to find. So it's a huge thing. The other thing I would say on networking too is just be kind to people. Like we're all fighting a battle of life and trying to figure it out, but life is beautiful. And when you're kind to one another and you can figure different things out and work together, it's a beautiful thing what you can create, and who can connect you to who, and how the world just works in a beautiful way once you're positive and put that mindset out there and are just kind to one another.
Yeah, it's as I say all the time, chase a relationship, don't chase the deal, because it's about the people.
100%. And even when you're raising private money, like when you're doing anything, it's really just like about the individual. If the individual trusts you and they feel confident in you, a lot of times they don't care about the deal. And so it's really, again, networking. Like it's all about networking, who you are, and putting that out there and showing people who you are. And also like, yeah, real estate is great, but also like what makes you happy? Like what other things are you doing? Like find common interests with people and get to know them in a different level. Yeah. Half of my accountability groups or any like events that I'm a part of, a lot of times we're talking about personal stuff, not real estate. We're getting to know each other on a different level. We're getting to know each other in different ways. I'm sitting here in a hotel room. The hotel staff clearly doesn't have our bags. I don't know where it is, but I'm sitting here in a hotel room in Brooklyn with one of my friends who I met at a mastermind. And it's been like a great relationship, and we've made amazing friends through it. And so it's, networking is everything.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. Well, thank you so much. Hey, if you guys are watching this video right now on YouTube, please click like on the video, and please put some comments down in the comment section. If you guys are on the call right now, stick around because we're going to go to the breakout rooms. And if you've not been on the call before, some of the folks, let's see here, JC, Rowena, a couple of the others, please stick around so that we can get a little bit more acquainted. And we're going to go to the breakout rooms. So on behalf of Devin and myself. If you guys are watching the video right now on YouTube, thanks for watching. Stay around for more. Look for more videos. We're going to have more great speakers like Devin coming up in the future. So we'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.